I invite him to stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of the devil, there he is.
Yeah. Now he's not the ghost of Neil past. He's the ghost of Neil present.
Yeah.
I am here. Welcome
Yes.
all. What are you talking about me?
Hey, George, can you give me share power, please?
Oh, I certainly can.
Thank you.
And we are live on Facebook.
Fantastic. Well, I am going to select the window I want to share. I don't want to share any of those. Yes, there we go. Show all windows. That's the one. Alrighty. George, are you seeing the presentation?
Yes, we are.
Excellent. Well, we'll go ahead and get started since we're 1 minute after 9. Good Wednesday morning, everybody. Welcome to 1 Million Cups, the RTP chapter. Exciting day, exciting things happening this week. We won't talk about those. We'll just go right into we're going to go right into our meeting today. So 1 million cups. Let me see here. What is 1 million cups? 1 million cups is a free national program designed to educate, engage, and connect entrepreneurs. We are a pitch-free environment that is a local ecosystem building arm of the Kauffman Foundation. Kauffman Foundation is a $4 billion endowment for the promotion of economic development through entrepreneurship, and there's about 160 plus 1 million cups communities across the country. We're industry agnostic, and again, not a pitch environment, which means that our presenters aren't selling their company to the room. Format is we have 1 to 2 startup companies give 6-minute presentations followed by about 20 minutes of question and answer from the audience. And the what we're trying to get from this is to answer the question, what can we as a community do to help our presenter? We would love for you all to get involved. You can do that in a number of different ways. One, you can become an organizer. So if you want to find out how to do that, you can contact myself, George, Terry, or any of the other organizers who are here today and ask how to become part of the organizing team. We can always use a little bit of extra help as we are all doing volunteer duty here. Nobody gets paid for this. You can also apply to present. So if you have a company that would benefit from presenting in front of our group and 1 million cups in RTP, you can submit an application. It's a very, very difficult process of going to our website, www.1millioncups.com/RTP, and clicking the button right at the top of the screen that says apply to present. Answer a couple of questions and Tracy will get in touch with you and walk you through the rest of the process. You can also refer a presenter. So if you know an entrepreneur with a startup company, let them know we're here to help. Invite them to a meeting, invite them to apply to present, send them information about our organization. We would love to chat with them. And of course, you can do what you're doing today, which is attend and give excellent feedback to our presenter. I'd like to thank our community organizers. We have Krista Johnson Sotomayor, William Clote, and Rosalind Cruz. Tracy, who we mentioned earlier, is our intake coordinator for presenter applications. We've got our coaches, David Bates, George Stewart, and Terry Conlon. David, as I said, is last week is going to be stepping away from this role, so we can always use like additional community organizers, but David's here today, so I wanted to recognize him. Then we also have Dan Hepworth and myself. Also want to thank our community sponsors, Muddy Dog Roasting Company, Imperative Product Operations, GTI over at NC State, NC Idea, American Underground, Wise Insights, the Massapequa Tutor, Soto IP, and New York Life. And now I'd like to introduce today's presenter. We have the Vade group, Ritwik, Pavan. Did I pronounce that correctly? I didn't get a chance to clarify that with you before we started.
Good.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and you can pull up your slide deck.
Awesome.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you. How's everybody doing today?
Doing good, doing good.
It's an interesting morning. I appreciate you guys hopping on early. I know a lot of you probably stayed up pretty late night, following this crazy election. Um, and I guess Dominic, is there a timer? Or I can get started whenever. How does it go?
Go ahead and get started. I'll set a timer, and
Yeah,
if you
we'll
start getting close,
I'll
know.
give you a 1 minute notice on the chat, Ritwik.
Sure. Okay. No, that sounds great. Cool. Alrighty. So, well, guys, I'm here to present Vade. Our goal is to connect the curb. Over the last 3 years, we've worked very hard to solve this problem that entails parking. As I'm sure many of you know, before COVID, either on a daily basis, whether it was to getting to work, or maybe even a weekly or monthly basis if you were going to a game, a UNC Duke game or any UNC game, really. I'm sure you've seen the problems that go around with parking. And during COVID, especially, loading zones have become a much bigger problem, where, Uber Eats and these delivery vehicles have kind of taken up the spaces, and cities have no idea what to do. It was a problem before COVID, and now it's continuing to accelerate even faster. So with that being said, what are we doing at Vade? Sorry, before I get that going, I was asked to mention some challenges that we had, and really what a kind of we are a hardware based startup. And with that being said, we have an electrical engineer on the team. However, we don't have 30 years of experience in space. We are looking for advisors and people that may have expertise on hardware, specifically IoT. That would be very useful for us. And that's in any capacity, whether it's taking a look at our hardware, being able to give us some input on it, or even being able to recommend manufacturers. So anything entailing hardware, please reach out to me. That would be amazing. And then also outside of that, as we are continuing to scale through this pandemic, we're looking for experts who can help us with building a sales team, or efficient CRM or conversion system. Because right now we are talking to a lot of people, but we don't have an organized way, and we don't have necessarily the experience to, make that transition from, just talking to 5 customers to talking to 500 customers. With that being said, I mean, those are the 2 big challenges that we've seen. Happy to elaborate on that. So getting into the mission and vision of our company. So our mission is to power the future of urban mobility by making standardized and dynamic curb data accessible to anyone, anywhere. And our vision is a world where every curb space is used, managed, and monetized automatically. So with that being said, now getting into the problem. The growth of cities and increase in curb usage by private companies has led to a massively inefficient system. Cities know that this is a problem, but their only options are using antiquated technology and policy solutions. So right now, the cities are managed in a very, you can say, ineffective manner. They have no idea who exactly is taking up their space. They have no idea how to predict it. This is affecting everyone. It's affecting, parcel delivery companies. It's affecting logistics companies. It's affecting the citizens, and it's affecting the cities. So with that being said, we designed, developed, and manufactured the first fully wireless solar-powered cameras. They use LTE, and they're able to be installed within minutes on a pole, and they can work anywhere. So the cameras essentially use computer vision to identify real-time parking spot availability or loading zones, and that's using our custom computer vision tool that we've developed. And then we're able to actually share this data via a public API that we've built. Outside the public API, we also have a dashboard that we've built. Happy to show you guys a demo outside of this call. And essentially, we're able to track the real-time parking spots, the curbs, and also be able to collect data over time. How many cars are parked in a specific spot? What's the average occupancy time? And this can be used whether it's a wayfinding app. You open up Google Maps one day and you're able to say, hey, I want to go to Raleigh Beer Garden, and it'll ask you, do you need a parking spot? If you say yes, it's using our API and technology to navigate you to the nearest available parking spot. So with that being said, we have various different use cases. We're able to be used. So we have a 2 different approaches. One is B2G, which is business to government, and then one is B2B, which is business to business. And so with B2G, it's, we focus on consumer parking, guided enforcement, and native analytics. So with native analytics, we have our own dashboard that we've built where cities are able to generate reports and have a better, a stronger case for, let's say they want to increase parking costs post COVID for a certain reason, or they want to increase costs because there's higher demand. They are now able to have, very valid real-time data that they've collected to be able to prove their case. With guided enforcement, this is another thing where, oftentimes enforcement officers basically play, kind of just, they kind of just make a guess and say, okay, this car probably parked over time, or I saw it, so let me go check and then give them a ticket. With our data, they're able to see how long the car's been parked for, to pair it up with their enforcement data and see if the cars basically violated their parking session and be able to generate revenue that way. I mean, government's looking to make money any way they can after the losses they've incurred because of COVID. And then consumer parking, this is with, being able to help consumers get to a parking spot as quick as possible, reducing carbon emissions, and also being able to, save on traffic, essentially reduce
Hey,
traffic.
Ritwik, excuse me, could you get to your asks? What can we as a community do for you, please?
Yeah, so I did that in the first slide. I don't know what the challenge is, what I was asking for. Did you see that? Right here. So as a community, we'd love some help on with expertise on the hardware and sales side. I don't know if that was David, if that's
Yeah,
what
I
you
think, yeah, no, I think George might have been giving you a time warning there.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
time to wrap up.
Yeah. So with that, being said, we have various different use cases in terms of our marketing itself. We have an internal sales team where we've done a lot of cold outreach and actually have gotten several good feedback from cities. We were able to get City of Raleigh on board strictly with just a cold email, and a few other cities as well. We're working with channel partners like Park Mobile, Passport, parking companies who are able to essentially get us in as a subcontractor through their relationships with cities and seeing the benefit of our data. And then finally, referrals. Cities like Raleigh, cities like Wilmington, cities like Asheville, where we've already basically gotten our footprint, they're able to essentially use a referral for us as well.
Hey, Ritwik, you're at 7 minutes now, so.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Cool.
We're going to move to Q&A. So Dominic, can you tell
Sure,
us how we're going to do this?
Sorry.
Hey, Dominic, you're muted.
Dumb. Okay.
The last slide I had, by the way, was just my our founder slide, so I could tell you guys about that in the Q&A.
Yeah, sure. And when we get back to the Q&A where everybody's in the same session, you can go ahead and put that slide up for contact information so everybody can have that.
Sure.
We have a new question answer format that we're going to go ahead and test run today. So instead of just having it be a free-for-all and queuing up people one at a time, we're going to do small breakout rooms. Okay. We're doing this because we want to encourage everybody to be able to participate in the questioning process instead of just having to come up with questions off the top of your head. Participate in open discussion, contribute your ideas, brainstorm some ideas for good questions and feedback for our presenter, and then remember your room number so you know which group you're in. And then we're going to come back and do a round robin session. You're going to return to the main meeting room, and we're going to call on each breakout group in turn to kind of present your questions, present your feedbacks that you came up with in the breakout room. And then when we're done with that part, then we'll do a like a virtual coffee pod, right? Where we'll have unmoderated interaction with the presenter and follow up, kind of like we had been doing after the meeting. And at some point, we'll also squeeze in some community announcements. So George, do you have those breakout rooms also?
Hey, Neil. Hey, Tim.
Hey there.
Hey, we got a few other people. So Elizabeth, Lashonda.
Good morning.
Good morning. So I'm going to be quiet because I talk too much. You guys, among yourselves, I'm going to come up with
So
if you could ask or counsel.
let me introduce myself. My name is Scott Albert, and for some reason I'm unable to change my picture and name on the Zoom, so I apologize. But I'm an advisor to Vade Park, so I'm a adjunct professor over at the business school at Keenan Flagler. There we go. For some reason it didn't take before. So I'm an adjunct professor over at Keenan Flagler. They were some of my students in several of my entrepreneurship classes, and they have successfully started to obviously operate their business. So I wanted to listen in on their presentation today. I'm happy to maybe answer any questions that Ritwik may have thrown out there that you have, but more importantly, I'd love to just hear some of the interaction that you folks have with regards to the business.
I guess one question for me would be, what type of hardware expertise specifically are they looking for?
So one of the founders is an electrical engineer out of NC State. He's been able to build some very nice custom cameras, both electronic wise as well as the video input. And I think what they're looking for is someone who can help advise or give them counsel on sort of next generation electronics for building out next generation cameras. So the cameras themselves are very easy to install, put up on a pole in 5 or 10 minutes anywhere. But again, I think just expertise on next generation technology for computer vision, as well as some of the electronics necessary.
Is there any wiggle room in that price point? $100 per camera?
Oh, absolutely.
Or
I think next generation will definitely be lower priced as they sort of build out the volume capability.
and last question for me to leave it for, is the machine learning, is that done on the camera itself, or does that have to be shuttled off to some other data center for it to be processed?
Great question, and I am not going to lie to you, and I'm going to tell you I don't know the answer to that. So I think we'll have to ask Ritwik directly.
Sounds great. Thank you.
So what did y'all think of the idea?
Yeah,
Bashful?
it's sorry. So it's interesting. So hey, this is Tim Dillon, and I think it's interesting. I guess one of the questions I had is just how does it interplay with things like Passport? Is one that I'm familiar with just from the consumer side. You know, I guess that would be one question I have, and that might lead me to follow-up questions on. They mentioned as using them as kind of like a channel and a partner play from the sales side of things, but I guess how does the technology work, or how does it interchange, or how is it different than things like Passport?
Sure. So I think, you know, in 7 minutes on a bleary-eyed Wednesday morning after the election, I'm not sure Ritwik really got the full impact of the story out there. So I'm not going to apologize for him any more than that. So what Vade has done, and I'm going to just give a 15-second longer answer, is it's a data collection system. So what they've been able to do is put their cameras up, be able to collect the data. Initially, they had a couple of earlier business models, but the current business model now is to evolve into selling the data out using an API solution where they can take the data available to law enforcement agencies like police forces for parking tickets, to cities that might want to know where parking availability is, and also to potentially even firms that like Google, et cetera, or Wave that might want the data to look for parking opportunities. So what they've been able to do is transition the business model to one where they've got the data available, then you can use that data for other purposes. And longer term, that's going to be the big growth opportunity for the company, is the use of the data. No one really wants to be in the hardware business. I mean, margins get skinned up, and it's just not a very great business to be in. So I think the hardware is something that hopefully they'll be able to move past over the next year or so.
Got it. Thanks. That's helpful.
Yep.
This
Hey
is
guys, the others are going to be rejoining us. And for those of you who didn't see a breakout room number, we were in breakout room number 6.
Has anybody expressed any concern over privacy on any of these things? Because that would be my, yeah, go ahead.
No, not that I'm aware of. That's a great question, but not that I'm aware of.
Well, if the parking thing doesn't work out, one thing that I've been tinkering with, and I would love to see, and it seems like it's right up this alley, is there's so much litter around our neighbor, you know, I live in a rural Franklin County area, and every weekend there's people that are, you know, picking up litter, and they're raising fines for it. This will be a beautiful thing for that, to be able to, you know, kind of capture data and just send them a bill, a fine if they're littering.
Hey guys, everybody's back. Thank you for bearing with us through probably a few technical glitches. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go around one room at a time and ask for one contribution from anybody in each room. So room number 1.
Who was room 1?
Ah, all right. So room number 1 was Ben, Brittany, Michelle.
You want to talk, Brittany, or
I'll lead you to it. I think we're right on the same train. Unfortunately, I don't think Ben, I wasn't, we were the only 2 that were able to participate in the group. So Michelle, you get it.
okay? So our main concern is that, first of all, for the ask, we don't feel like it's specific enough. Like with the hardware, like, you know, we need more of a description because it seems very vague in order for us to provide any type of referral.
Sure.
And then the second part that we talked about is operational. We often feel like we don't have enough understanding of where you are operationally, especially with our expertise, to figure out where you're at and how we can help. And that would be questions that I would ask of you is what is your structure and how did you come up with your pricing model? So
sure. No, Michelle, that's a great question. So to, I guess, go into specifics with our ask on the hardware side, we have built pretty new technology in terms of its IoT side, you know, and the solar panel, it's solar powered with LTE. And so we're looking specifically, like, you know, with our cameras, we still, you know, our CTOs had experience from electrical engineering degree in NC State, but outside of that, we don't have industry experience on like how to make sure these cameras, you know, dust isn't a problem or vandalism, or, you know, how to prevent our cameras from, you know, ending up being vandalized. And I guess to be as specific as possible, we haven't done the full A/B testing and all that kind of stuff yet, just because we don't know the drawbacks. Like, we've had our cameras up for 6 months in Raleigh, city of Raleigh downtown, but we're talking 3 to 5 years is the life expectancy, and we want to make sure that our cameras are able to withstand that duration period. So somebody that knows and has, you know, set up cameras, whether it's in municipalities, whether it's in, you know, public facing places, and able to give us like, this is the risks, you know, before we actually find out ourselves, if they could let us know these are some of the challenges that you're going to be facing having your cameras in this type of location, you know, or having solar power or having LTE. Is that better answer your question for that?
Yeah,
And then
all right, so let's move to room number 2, which is Carol, Catherine, Dan, and Dave.
Yeah, I'm gonna let somebody else pick up the mic, although I took some notes. If y'all need the notes, happy to help out.
I'm happy to share. So I think we wanted to ask you a few questions about, like, we wanted to clarify what the problem you're solving is, because it seems like there are a lot of solutions out there already for various parking things. Just clarifying that problem, and then within that, what are the competitors that you see currently?
Sure.
And someone in our room also noted that there is some technology from Google identifying where there are parking spaces, and wondering, like, is this built on top of that, or is it a competitor to that?
Sure.
And then we also had a referral to give you.
Awesome. No, that would be awesome. Well, thanks, Catherine. So to answer your question about the problem, in simple terms, cities are lacking data in order to make parking decisions. And there has been, you're right, there has been other companies out there like Park Mobile, a lot of companies that have focused in on parking payments or being able to use that data to be able to show people where to find parking. However, nobody's been able to come up with an effective, scalable solution, which is, cities don't want to spend millions of dollars trying to get cameras wired up. So in terms of competitors, we have competitors like Visionful. There is Cord, which is, they don't do hardware, but they're basically migrating a bunch of data from different data sources. We are the only solution that's able to provide almost 100% accurate real-time data, because we just have our cameras that are able to be easily installed up on poles. Nobody else is doing that. And that's something that we just learned after talking to several cities before building our product. So hopefully that kind of answers your question. In terms of Google hasn't gotten anything into hardware specifically. They're trying to stay away from hardware. They recently announced a partnership with Park Mobile, but that's more towards parking payments. And they use a lot of intelligence to get their data from companies like Flowbird, but they currently have no access to like real-time parking spot data that they can show their users. So down the road, it is our goal to get, with a company like them or Waze.
Thanks, Catherine. Room number 3, Dominic, Douglas, Dwight, Jacques.
Hey,
Yeah.
Dominic, if you don't mind, I'm gonna jump in because I have to
Go
go
ahead.
at 9:30. I have another
Sure,
call, but
Go ahead.
Ritwik, I think it's really interesting. I'm an aerospace engineer specialized in the robotic and mechatronic, and so I would like to, pretty much set aside a separate meeting with you, look at your hardware issue, and maybe recommend people that could help you either. And I think what you mentioned about the environment, and that was one of my main concerns, is the reliability and how you're gonna maintain this in over 3, 4, 5 years, and some of the external issue that might come into play, and especially if you're exchanging data, there's also degradation of the reliability of the data and how you account for faults.
Sure.
So I will connect with you separately, and then we can maybe we can look a little bit more at the design, and like I said, I can recommend you some people that will help you there.
That would be awesome. Thank you, Jack.
You're welcome.
All right, let's go to room number 4, which is Jim, Josh, Mark.
I like your questions, Josh, so I'll let you have that, unless you want me to reiterate.
Sure. So I think basically our questions revolved around kind of the value proposition, like per camera, and more so like, at least my question, and I think we all kind of discussed this, was the interesting thing is the software. And like, there's a lot of municipalities out there that have cameras. There's a lot of stores, or, you think about like the Rings and all these cameras that are out there. So like, the value is, what can you do with this data? Not like your physical hardware hanging on a pole, someplace. So that's really kind of the crux of it. And also, can you scale up? Like, if there are street festivals, and there's a huge demand, if there's a lot of cameras out there, can you tap into other sources, or is it just you can only process your own?
That's a great question, Josh. I don't know if you had something to say after that, but so essentially that's exactly what we're working on right now. Our whole goal is to basically combine the data from different platforms. So we've actually been able to tap into Seattle's CCTV camera footage. We're working to gain access to New York's private camera feed through one of our advisors, and also Austin, which we already have access to. So what you're doing is what you're talking about is exactly what we're doing. What we started to shift towards is essentially, if a city already has loading zone or parking spots, CCTV camera footage that they can give us access to, we're able to incorporate our custom computer vision tool to essentially tap into that CCTV footage, analyze the parking spots, and provide that same real-time data without having to go set up our cameras. So what essentially will happen down the road is our cameras just become, if it's a necessity, then we can go and install it. We don't have to if the city already has the existing infrastructure for it. And so like, with music, street festivals or whatever, if they gave us access to the footage, we can actually, just tap in and apply our computer vision tool and our software to it. And also, I think Jack was talking about it, but our cameras don't actually do any of the data work or any of that side of things. They simply capture an image once every minute, send it over to our server, which actually does the, analyzing, and then the image is disposed. So a lot of you might have the question about, oh, is it going to be like Big Brother or any of that? But we don't store any of the images, just the data.
All right, thank you. Room number 5, which is basically Nicole and Terry. Because Ritwik, you can't ask yourself a question.
Yeah,
Okay.
our
Go ahead,
question is
Nicole,
really,
why don't you go ahead? Nicole,
I'm
why
so
don't you go
sorry.
ahead first? That's okay, go ahead first.
Yep, our question was really similar to Josh, was just about the data and how to protect it and how to not have other hackers and stuff, hack into it, and then just protecting the cameras itself. Like for example, with the riots that are going on downtown Raleigh and the other riots that are more than likely to come, which you answered our question. So thank you so much. I feel like we cheated a little bit because you were inside of a room.
Yeah.
The thing I did not get to mention, and we can definitely connect offline, as far as your sales team and CRM, I do have a great connection for you. I'm so sorry, my full-time job's beep 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 beep. I do have a connection for you that can help with those things.
That would be amazing. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Nicole. And I think, Nicole, also one other thing with speaking of the riots and whatnot, we load up the city's contractors with extra cameras. So if for whatever reason a camera were to go down, it takes 5 minutes for them literally to go up a ladder and just install it. So what we do is we stock the cameras up with extra units. And there's already been riots going on even over the last few months. And we have our cameras up in downtown Raleigh and it hasn't been an issue. So, fingers crossed, it probably doesn't become an issue.
All right, thank you. So last but not least, those of you who stayed in the main meeting room with me, somebody want to speak up?
Who was in the room with you, George?
Yeah, good question. Tony, Tim, Scott.
Yeah, I can ask a question that just we didn't actually get answered during our breakout session. So from a sales CRM perspective, are you looking for guidance on like which CRM to select, or are you looking for guidance on just basic like kind of foundational CRM setup for your sales team and what might be a proper method to start with as you're kind of growing? So is it more of a process or is it more of a tooling thing from the sales side?
Do you mind repeating that again, Tim? I don't know
Sure.
if I exactly understand.
Sure. Is it from the sales, like the sales kind of guidance you're looking for? You mentioned both just sales help and then CRM input as well. Are you looking for guidance on like which CRM to select as you're kind of growing and scaling your company, or with the size you are right now? Or are you looking for basic sales process help right now?
Sure. So I'd say in terms of, I'd say a little bit of both, especially with government outreach, because up until now we've gotten on GovWin. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. They post a lot about RFPs and like deals that are happening in place, which we've used to reach out to cities. A lot of the parking managers are active on LinkedIn, so we've used that as well. But if somebody has experience with sales and overall outreach in the government sector, that would be very helpful for us. And I guess to answer your question, a little bit of both. Right now we're using Notion. It's a relatively new software to handle like the sales between our VP of sales that we've got on our board, our advisors, and our internal founders. And as we continue to grow, it's definitely going to need to be something that we're more particular on and have an organized tool. So I guess from a startup standpoint, an active, a sales system that actually works.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right, so we did a roundtable, and in the chat there are 3 recommendations or suggestions or offers of help. So we're just going to hit those. The first is from Dave. Dave Bates, can you elaborate just a little bit on what you put in the chat?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Ritwik, while you are trying to find somebody who has a lot more engineering background and history, if you haven't already done it, you can check into things like mean time to failure. There's lots of databases and things out there that talk about, sort of parts supplies and that kind of thing. The military specifications for military applications, a lot of times you'll find, if you can get access to the mil specs, you can find data on things like cameras in harsh environments and stuff like that. So those might be things that you guys could begin to look into even while you're looking for feedback from somebody else. So I don't have a really source for that, but there are, if you know how to look for that, you can probably find somebody who's got that kind of in their procurement background. That's typically a parts procurement and design function. So
Definitely. No, that's definitely useful information, David.
All right. Brittany had a suggestion concerning the city of Orlando.
Hi, yes, and I'll throw my camera back on. I don't know. This yellow is a little eye punching. My just suggestion was for the practicality of implementation. We do actually more on the IT side, less on the hardware side, but just from my experience, I used to work the Orlando market, and they had a similar program in place for AI and for traffic monitoring that they put both in place in major city parking centers as well as on traffic lights as a part of their program to stop drive-throughs on red lights. Those commissioners might be that, since it's been enacted for about 3 years now, a county commissioner might be able to tell you whoever runs that program, which is pretty easily findable. The good thing about working with government sectors is that you can find everything online. You can pretty much find them and reach out. I don't know if it's the same person that I interacted with in a previous life. I can also try to source that, but they might just have the practical data on how many of the cameras have been destroyed, how many of the cameras, the dust integration, or how many have been spray painted, graffiti, damaged, wind issues, 1,000 other factors that might just give you some practical data for saying, hey, if we put up 100 cameras, we're going to expect to lose 3% over a year, and or whatever that be. They might have some practical data for you.
Definitely. No, that would be very useful. And do you have an email connection for that, Brittany, or?
I can reach back out. So I have not been in the Orlando market for about 4 years now. So I would assume, based on that city, that the people have changed, but I can go back into my previous life from a previous email and see if I can dig up. I believe last time it was David Marks that I worked with, so, but I don't think he's still in role.
Gotcha. Well, I'll look into it for sure. Thank you.
All right. And then the last one we have is Catherine, who's offered to introduce you to a company.
Sure. And I don't know if you're familiar with Automotion, but they're a North Carolina company that uses cameras to track cars, specifically in lines, either for car washes or quick service restaurants. And I'm happy to give you a warm introduction. Just shoot me an email. I have
Definitely.
left my email
I got
in the
your
chat.
email. Thank you, Catherine. Appreciate that.
Okay, and that's it for the Q&A. So over to you, Dominic.
Yeah, so we do a, what is this? Oh, okay, we've got a survey for the Q&A. Were the breakout rooms an effective way to develop question and answer? Everybody go ahead and fill that out and give us a couple of seconds, and then we'll go back to, yep. There we go. We are not sure. We'll try it out again next week and see how that works. All right, George. You're unmuted.
Sounds like the experiment is not over. All right, thanks.
Exactly. All right, so now we're doing our normal method for community announcements. If you have a community announcement, please just send George a message. Let him know you'd like to address us, either with an event or something going on with your company, or a community, entrepreneurial resource that you've discovered recently that you would like to share with the community. Catherine, I bet you've got something to announce. No, you don't? Nothing from NC Idea going on right now? Okay.
Oh,
let
I do.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Okay.
Next week is the NC Ideas conference, but I wasn't intending to announce that, but I'll go grab those details.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you could just go ahead and drop a link into the chat so everybody have that, that would be awesome. Let's see. Mark, you got anything this week with the PTSA over at Alston Ridge?
Nothing new. It's the same. I guess I'll throw it in the chat. I'm looking for interesting topics for the Alston Ridge Middle School Innovation Program, which has to be virtual at the moment. So I'd like to do some innovation interviews to just have a 5-minute chat with companies doing interesting things to just bring out the idea of what was the problem to solve, the conception, some problems around how you solve that problem, and then some results. So I'll throw that in the chat.
Okay. And what do you, Mark? Are you sharing those with the students in the school? What is that part of?
Yeah. So so the program will start with me doing a few of these interviews. I'm trying to get like 10 of them lined up before I start deploying these, and I'll host them on the Alston Ridge Middle website. But since I've got close connections to Parkside Elementary, I'll send them a link to these same interviews, and then probably some other schools around too. When we get up and moving, I'll start broadcasting those for students to digest. So in the future, after these first few, I might have some students do these interviews and really get engaged with what's going on in the community. So that's the plan, is to broadcast them when we get them published.
Okay, excellent. There's no other announcements.
Actually, we have one. So,
Oh, yeah.
so Terry has an idea he'd like to explore. It's
Sure.
not quite an announcement yet.
Yeah, okay. One of the things I've noticed recently at this post-COVID entrepreneurial startup world is that there's a whole range of smaller micro sources of lending that it would be useful for more people to know about. So what I was proposing to George is that I think the next time that we have a little bit of a hiatus or dry spell of people presenting, that we have a presentation on funding alternatives, period, whether it's grants, whether it's microloans, whatever it is, so that people are more aware of those kinds of things. That's it.
Excellent. And I do have one announcement. So next week we are going to have the resumption of the live RTP business networking event that's going to take place next Thursday, the 12th, from 6 to 8 p.m. We're actually going to be hosting that at the Courtyard Marriott in Morrisville. So we've got a lot more open space. It's being limited to 40 people. Everybody has to wear masks and social distance. But you know, things are going to start to come back around as far as getting back to normal business. You just have to make sure that we're safe and we protect ourselves. But if you want more information about that live casual networking event, I just dropped the link in the chat to register on Eventbrite, but I'll be hosting that, and I'd love to see you all out there in person if you have a chance to make it or you feel comfortable going out in public these days. So are there any, George just dropped this in the chat, are there any suggestions for improving that breakout room question and answer session that we tried out today? Does anybody have any feedback on that they'd like to share?
I like the concept. I feel like there may have been one or two like more rooms than there needed to be.
Okay.
Good, thanks.
I felt like we needed a little bit more time to flesh out questions.
Yeah. Yeah, asking somebody to volunteer in advance to kind of be the full facilitator to pull this conversation together, even if there's 4 or 5 people, somebody taking that on helps to focus in a relatively small amount of time in a small group.
True.
Well, and there's higher level of, you need to be on time to be able to hear the entire presentation and to fully participate in the breakout room. And so time takes it takes a little bit of time to get change in place. And so if participants understand that being on time is more critical, I think that you'll see higher participation in the breakout rooms as well.
Good point, Elizabeth.
Also, I think that random breakout rooms are great, but because there are specific asks being required, I know that obviously we don't know everyone's full capabilities, but it may make sense for us to consider grouping people based on the asks in the rooms, just so that, we can use our experiences to the benefit of the presenters.
Gotcha. That would assume we know everybody who is coming ahead of time too, though.
Very fair.
No, people can choose what room they go to. So you could say breakout room 1 is for this,
That's
breakout
right.
room 2 is for this, and let people self-select.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I like that
That's a good
idea.
suggestion.
Self-selecting based on the interest.
Mm-hmm.
Fair point. We'll take that feedback and try to improve this next time. Any other suggestions? All right. Well, with that, we're going to go into our open forum. So interactive conversation with our presenter, and just feel free to ask questions, follow up on some of the things that you maybe had questions about in the breakout room, but